Margaret Cathaoirleach and I very strongly welcome the opportunity to speak on the Youth Justice Strategy and pay tribute to the Minister here present and also to Minister Brown, who addressed us earlier, and indeed for the early groundbreaking commitment of Deputy Stanton when he was Minister of State. As a former teacher, Cathaoirleach, I know that early intervention for positive outcomes is critical. For education, certainly, but equally so for other societal outcomes. It is often said that early childhood teachers can predict the ultimate education outcomes of most of their students, such as the effect of socioeconomic and household circumstances on their educational journey. Equally, as this strategy well recognises, the likelihood of young people interacting with the criminal justice system is too often set in train from an early age. So a strategy that involves the whole of society, and not simply the criminal justice system or the Department of Justice or An Garda Síochána, is one that is the only one that has any prospect of success. In his foreword to the strategy, Minister Brown sets this out clearly enough. So, Cathaoirleach, the analysis is well grounded and is well done. The evidence is abundant and clear. The real and difficult bit is implementation, to ensure that the silos that have always existed are broken down and that a truly integrated youth justice strategy is not only devised but resourced and put into effect. The first important principle underscored throughout the strategy is respect and the inclusion of the child. Cathaoirleach, our attitude to children has evolved remarkably over recent decades because our historic attitude to children and our record, quite frankly, has been shocking. The way we dealt with children in the past, particularly vulnerable children, has been cruel and unacceptable, as a multiplicity of inquiries and reports that we've debated in this House bear ample and awful testimony. The voice of the child and the young person, therefore, must be heard, as also the voice of advocates for vulnerable children who are not in a position to articulate their own position. The second critically important issue, goes back to what I said earlier, is the tackling of disadvantage. Poverty, dreadful housing or no housing, the lack of any community support, access to sports facilities, access to the arts, access to even more fundamental and basic things like proper health care, including mental health care, are absolutely critical. Because the statistics, quite frankly, are shocking. If you look at the snapshot of 2019 of the children who were detained in Oberstown Detention Centre for the first quarter of that year, the most recent figures that I got. Breakdown of those children. 19% were members of the travelling community. 31% had suffered the loss of a parent through either death, imprisonment, or no long-term contact. 41% were either in care or had significant involvement with TUSLA. 23% had a diagnosed learning disability. 41%, Cathaoirleach, had mental health needs, with 25% prescribed medication for a mental health concern. 71% of those children were considered to have substance misuse problems, and 57% were not engaged in education prior to their detention. Now, if you want a snapshot of the most vulnerable of children. There you have it. And they're the people we have detained. We really must do better. Are we not all shocked and appalled by that litany that I've just recited? Young people who come into conflict with the law must be treated as children first, and that's underscored in this document. The truth is, their level of maturity and development must be recognised and embraced in planning a way forward that helps them on a positive development path. And I notice in the Minister's speech, the foreword is taking a better path, supporting young people and communities to make positive choices for themselves. But in truth, what positive choices can those children that I've just described make for themselves? It's not as if we're all equal. And some people can say, well, I'm going to take this path. If you are from the kind of environment that we know populates Oireachtas, as I've indicated, those choices don't exist. And we as a society have to understand that and intervene in a way that allows that pathway to be different. Now, none of this implies, Cathaoirleach, a Pollyanna approach to youth crime or my analysis that seeks to minimise in any way the harm inflicted by young people who are engaged in crime. We all know the impact on the victims of crime, particularly what is regarded as low-level crime, in communities where people are terrorised in their own home, where people cannot feel free to walk their own streets. The impact on those victims is horrendous. It is life-limiting and sometimes catastrophic for their life expectations. So we have to give protection to those people, and we have to be robust and clear in ensuring that they're allowed, as victims of crime, to live a proper and decent life as we would all expect. And I'm deeply concerned at a number of issues, and we might have a further opportunity to debate this. The number of racist attacks now, the number of racist graffiti issues that are now appearing in places like Minrine Park in my own town, a brand new, beautiful park. But some gobdaw decides to put the horrendous racist graffiti there. We need to tackle these things at source, and as I say, I don't have a Pollyanna approach to any of this. The detailed strategy is broad and, I believe, comprehensive. It is built on the wide foundations which, if driven properly and appropriately and resourced adequately, can, I believe, make a real difference. Clearly, not all actions fall on the Department of Justice to make, just like our understanding, as the Minister of State here present will know, of policing reform. It requires a whole of community buy-in and every agency and Department of State playing its part. The work to be done by the Governance and Strategy Group, supported by the Youth Advisory Group and the Youth Justice Oversight Group, will determine success or not. So it would be very helpful, Cathaoirleach, and I'll ask the Minister of State, I don't know whether there is a response at the end, but I think there is, of this debate, if she will actually tell us, in those critical bodies, the Governance and Strategy Group, the Youth Advisory Group and the Youth Oversight Group, who is populating those bodies? How often do they meet? And who do they report to? Do they report to the Minister of State regularly or to the Minister for Justice? And is the implementation of this important strategy an agenda item on the Cabinet subcommittee that monitors justice matters? If, as I believe it should be, on the Cabinet subcommittee reporting list, then I think we could see action. I know from my own time in government that having an agenda item coming before a group of ministers, including the Taoiseach, regularly, with requirements for timeline reporting, really makes a difference. So I would hope that the Minister of State, in her concluding remarks, will say this is a fine strategy, but the implementation will determine whether it's worth the paper it's written on. And I'd like her to address those particular questions to give us all confidence that the strategy will indeed be implemented.